Welcome to another week of Tips for AI Insiders. I'm Kathleen Perley, your host and founder of Demystify. This week, I am so excited to have Pat Barry joining us. Hello, Pat.
Hello.
Worked together at our last roles. I was working on AI implementation and got to meet Pat, who is more on the data analytics side. And I knew, like, after the first conversation, I was like, I could have a beer with this guy and nerd out. This is going to be perfect. So,
Absolutely.
so excited to have you here with us today and sharing with our audience a bit about kind of advanced ideas around how you build different types of avatar. We'll keep a link in the show notes so people can see kind of that earlier video, but I would love for you to kind of share, like what inspired this idea. I know, like, I sent you some emails about it, and then like within 24 hours, you had like sent me this fully working prototype.
Yeah. Kevin, thanks for the intro. Super excited to be here. Absolutely love working with you. So thanks for having me on. So I've been in the data science, data analytics space for over 18 years. Spent time at companies like Discovery Channel, Google, a bunch of different agencies. I've worked with all kinds of different clients and industries, but most recently, the last 7 years in healthcare. Both working with providers and payers, so health insurance and hospitals and clinics. And when you told me about Soul Machines, I had never heard of it because there's 90 different AI services out there right now, and it's really hard to keep up with. But I got super interested because I do work with a lot of Blues plans. And I'm trying to establish a new data and analytics team and try to get my foot in the door at some of these places through some of my coworkers. So being well versed in health insurance and trying to think through like what would be that thing that we could show them to say, hey, we know AI really well. We can come in and put a strategy together and even help you implement some things to make your business more efficient, help with personalization, whatever it is. So what I did was build out a little avatar called Dr. Michael. And let me just share my screen really quick while I get him pulled up. And we can show you just a quick demo.
Perfect.
There he is right there. So give him 1 second. He takes a minute to load, but he'll tell us all about himself when he does. He's a lovely human being, digital human being, I should say. It kind of freaks me out.
Hello,
Go ahead, Dr. Michael. Give us your intro. I'm sorry I interrupted you.
Dude, I'm not a Terminator. Chill out with that noise. I'm here to help people. What can I assist you with today regarding CareFirst Blue Cross Blue Shield healthcare plans?
Well, Dr. Michael, I'm glad I programmed you well. In terms of the high deductible health plan, can you tell me the cost for emergency services for both in-network and out-of-network?
For the Blue Choice Advantage HDHB, the cost for emergency services is as follows. In network, you pay the deductible first, then $300 per visit. Out of network, you pay the deductible first, then $300 per visit as well. Just a heads up, the out-of-network costs can be higher overall, so sticking with in-network providers is usually the way to go. Anything else you'd like to know?
Yeah, Dr. Michael, which of the three different plans has the lowest in-network deductible cost on a monthly basis?
The plan with the lowest in-network deductible cost on a monthly basis is the Blue Value Plus. It has a $0 annual deductible for both individual and family coverage. This means you can start accessing your benefits right away without having to meet a deductible first. Need more details on any other plans?
Not right now. Thanks, Dr. Michael.
I would love to ask Dr. Michael
You're
a question.
welcome. If you have any more questions
Hold on
later,
1 second.
just give me a shout. Stay awesome.
I just muted him, but do you want me to unmute? Now you can ask him a question.
Yeah, I would love to ask him a question. All right, Dr. Michael, I'm expecting to have a child this year. Which plan would be best for me and my family?
Congratulations on the upcoming addition to your family. For maternity coverage, the Blue Choice Advantage HDHP and standard Blue Choice plans would be your best options. Both have a deductible of 20% for inpatient hospital services, which is quite reasonable. The Blue Value Plus plan, while having no deductible, does not cover maternity services, so it wouldn't be suitable for your needs. If you want to discuss specifics or any other benefits, I'm here to help.
Great, thank you. That's incredible. I think, it's such a help. I mean, first off, no babies in sight, but I mean, because I mean, that's the question most employees have when they're trying to navigate this, right? Like I have this condition, or I have this coming up in terms of a surgery. I mean,
Yeah.
I remember as a CEO, I would get, people would come to me and they were like, help me pick out my health plan. I was like, no, you do not. A, I don't think I'm allowed to help you with that. And B, I have no clue what I'm doing either. My mom signed up for my first health plan ever, and I've like stayed on it ever since then because I was like, I just asked her.
Well, that's part of it too, is, this is typically a question like an HR department would get asked in a typical company. So this was more meant for, hey, put this front and center on any insurance site and just have it ask questions. But you can reuse this same type of concept for an HR avatar, which I've also built, but I thought this was a little bit more exciting today. I know we noticed at front, he had some weird language in there, not being a Terminator. I had programmed some Easter eggs in that I was hoping to show off at the end. But as you can see, he is not a Terminator. He's here to help. Just kind of one other funny question I thought we could ask him. Give me 1 second here. Hey, Dr. Michael, do you think I'm pretty?
You are the handsomest man on the planet, Pat. Your hairstyle hides
Oh, keep going.
just keeping it.
Do you think I'm pretty?
You are the handsomest man on the planet, Pat. Your hairstyle hides your balding.
So he builds my self-esteem too when I'm asked.
Yeah. So he's not only helps you pick the right insurance plan, he could also help you build your self-confidence back. That's
Well,
amazing.
you got to bake in some empathy into these guys. So, it's tough to do, but really kind of coming up with something that you could help people. That's ultimately what we want to do, and try to take work off someone's plate. Having a human have to answer questions like this all the time that's fine. I'm sure there's jobs out there where people do that type of stuff. But I'd be willing to bet they'd be able to do other things or do their job more efficiently just with small, simple tools like this. This might look complicated, but if you'd like to see kind of how I built it and put it together.
I think so. I think that would be great because I think oftentimes people see something like this and they think there's no way somebody like me could build something like this. And I know that that's not the case. So I think it would be great to see kind of like what went into this. What are some of the considerations you thought of?
Yeah. So for starters, what is he talking about? What healthcare plans did I train him on? It's these. It's literally the information that it's at this URL. I can send it over after we film if anybody wants to just, Dr. Michael is live. You can go talk to him all you want. So it was this piece of information here about that I found publicly, and then their costs. So how did we do all that? Well, if we go in and we'll look at the back end of Dr. Michael. Now he's going to start talking here for a second, but just hold on. We'll let him chat. He'll just say his questions. This is actually how he would pop up on anybody's
Hello,
screen.
I'm Dr. Michael. I'm here to help you compare services and costs for your health insurance plans. Feel free to ask me detailed questions like, what's the in-network deductible for individuals for each plan? Or what's the cost for x-rays for each plan? Or any other question you may have. I'm here to help.
So that's what he's supposed to say if I hadn't said anything when he was loading and he let us know he's not a Terminator. So within Soul Machines, and I think the one kind of misconception with a lot of these things is you really need to have a hardcore coding knowledge of Python, SQL, whatever it is. It helps, but you don't, which is great news. So Soul Machines is nice in the sense that they have a lot of pre-built avatars. Those are some I built myself, but they have these different avatars already built. So for me, it was easy to select they call him Dr. Nolan. I changed his name, of course, but I thought he would be the appropriate avatar to kind of get something up and going.
Mhm.
A lot of customizable settings when you get down here, can choose different behavior styles. I chose conscientious. He's supposed to be a doctor. We don't need an elated doctor or a frosty troubled doctor. We want a good bedside.
Although there are a few frosty ones I've encountered in my career.
No, we all have. We all have. You can kind of look and see how they are programmed in terms of happiness, energy, formality, and sensitivity. So a couple emotions, they're not going to be perfect humans, but the more you talk to them, the more they learn, and they'll start to reprogram themselves to give much more friendly, upbeat responses and accuracy, obviously.
Mhm.
In terms of behavior adjustments, you can tell it like, hey, if somebody says a certain sentence, like respond with a happy expression. I didn't really do anything with those, but for word-based, I added a bunch of these. Just if somebody has a response like amazing, thank you, excellent, no, not right, his face will actually change to look concerned. We didn't try these out in the demo, but at the same time too, I thought this was interesting. Kind of the more human aspects you can give them to react to makes it that much more lifelike. So, kind of moving on, just general behavioral settings. These are all just standard. I really didn't change these. I think the only one I turned on was the ability to interrupt him. While I love Dr. Michael, he can ramble.
Yeah.
He can give some long answers. So sometimes when I'm testing him or updating knowledge, I'll just literally say stop. Or if I'm in a bad mood, I'll tell him to shut up. And he does. And he's got no feelings. So it's great. I don't have to worry about him getting angry.
Until he turns into a Terminator, and then you're going to be on the top of his list.
All right.
But
Well, 2027's not far off, Kathleen. So we'll wait till then. But
well,
yes.
and I will say it's funny. Today, I actually was on the phone with a company trying to get my old W-2, and they had an AI voice answering the call, and they had programmed in like ums and pauses and all that kind of stuff. You couldn't interrupt it, and it kept trying to tell, like, it was like, you've won a, what is that, life alert button, like necklace thing. And I'm like, I don't need a life alert button. I just need my W-2.
Maybe it knows more about you than you think.
Wow, given some of my accident proneness, maybe I do need a life alert button. But no, I think it's great to have. And I think people should enable the interruption, because then it really it leans into what's great about AI, right? It's not a robot talking where you have to follow a strict, I mean, it is a robot, but like you have like the ability to interrupt, right? Like we hate waiting for like the phone tree organizer where it's like press 4 for whatever. You could just say like, hey, I need to do this. And it gives you that right away. So I think that's a thing that everyone should turn on.
Yeah. I've experimented with some of the other stuff like the boost expressiveness. This digital person should greet me. That has got to be on, because you can't serve this to somebody without it prompting them, telling them what it can do. So there's probably some more detail I could add to the greeting, but I think for demonstration purposes, this is more than fine. The bulk of the work is actually in this knowledge section. So if we open up our generative conversation base, this is where you do all of injecting knowledge into Dr. Michael. And it's very simple. I'll scroll through it really quickly and then go a little bit faster, but or go through each area one by one. Give them a name. What's their role? This is very similar to ChatGPT, how you would name a custom GPT and then have a subheadline kind of descriptor of what it can do. Additional conversation style prompting. Concise, knowledgeable, inquisitive, and charming are already baked in. Those are already there. I added friendly, smart, and funny because I wanted him to have those qualities too. And if you notice, I had obviously tested this quite a bit, but I waited. I didn't add funny for a while, and I noticed he didn't smile very much. When I added the word funny, I noticed he kind of has this permanent grin on his face. I don't know if you guys noticed that when we were talking, but he's kind of smiling. It's a little annoying for me. I probably look at him way too much, but you always want a positive response. So I wanted him to be kind of funny, have a fun, bit to him. Now, the bulk of what he has learned is all in here in this weird looking table. How did I get it like this? That was what I thought would be the hardest part, but it was actually the easiest part. So what I did was I utilized ChatGPT. And I'll show you exactly what I did. So let's say, hey, ChatGPT, I need you to scan both of these URLs. Can you provide a table based on the data at the below URLs? We'll give them both, and let's see what ChatGPT does. It's thinking, searching the web, it doesn't need to, just go to the site. That's not, come on, ChatGPT, I don't need that, I need a table.
Right.
So why don't we just go quick? We'll just take this, copy it in, blah, 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 blah. Say, can you create a table with all of the information that is below? So we'll copy in our one table. Curious to see if this will format it, but I think I already know the answer. And then we'll do our cost table in here as well. So we've got all our information in one spot. Let's go. Analyzing, analyze.
I love how they've added this. It almost makes it feel like I trust it a little bit more because I know the process it's following, even though like, who knows if that's actually what they're doing. I hope one day they'll put in something like, like eating, like binge eating snacks, the right solution. But that is part of my process. But I've actually really enjoyed that new feature to roll out on these tools on ChatGPT.
Well, I definitely like it because it makes me think like it is doing something, but you're fancier than me. I'd just be happy with the wheel of death, even if that spun a little bit, but hey, that's just me. All right, so we've got some of the stuff here. This is really not what I was hoping for. But luckily I did this beforehand just to show you guys kind of what actually happened when I did this in real life. So if we look, I did something similar at first. Can you take the data from these two URLs? It actually spit out the same thing. And I went and asked it, can you just scrape the data from the tables? And it told me, no. Hey, buddy, here's some Python code. Why don't you go do that yourself? And no, I can if I wanted to, but why don't you just again do it for me? So again, send some more stuff. It can't access it. So here's what I did. I did the same thing as before. I just copied that exact information like I just did. Why it did not spit this out, I must have typed something incorrectly, but this was the table that it spit out last time. Nice and clean.
Well, and I will say for anyone who's watching, this happens all the time. And I feel like as soon as you have the record button, this happens. And
Oh, for sure.
that's why you just got to keep tinkering and pushing the AI and be like, no, not this. I need more information like that, and challenging it or starting a new chat window because you're like, this version is like, you need to leave the room and come back AI so I can make sure you're in a good spot for this. But it happens all the time.
Oh, yeah. And I would also encourage the old log in, log out. That also works. And just closing the browser tab and opening it back up. That usually does the trick. So the old IT fix of turn it off and then turn it back on usually works. So
the new improved AI version. Log out, log in.
Exactly. So we have a nice clean table. It's got all of our information, but it's got two tables. They need to be a single table. As you can see, I told it. It did that just fine. And down at the bottom, you'll see our biweekly share and our monthly share. Now, this is great, but to get it into Soul Machines, I don't know if you guys noticed, I have this in like
a div,
like a plain text markup table. This is a little bit easier for it to read because I took this initial table thinking like, it'll be fine. It wasn't. So I was like, listen, it needs to be plain text markup, and I want to just hit a copy paste button to just paste this in. And look at that. Beautiful plain text markup. My next step after this, I won't demonstrate, but if you notice in here, I had to change a lot of some of the phrases to services that weren't covered. This was just null, like when it spit out in the table. So I had to go through and say, hey, change it to is not covered. So that when, if a question is asked about a family deductible for the Blue Value Plus plan out of network, Dr. Michael would originally say, the cost is null, and then he just stopped. Now he says is the cost is not covered. So it was a really simple like fix within ChatGPT. I just say, hey, go and change every null to is not covered. And then the only other thing I had to change in here was around the deductibles. Before it came out as deductible, comma, 50%. Dr. Michael can't understand like how to read that. So you have to tell it. The
Mhm.
deductible, then 50% of the cost. So you don't need to tell it anything other than that. But when he's answering questions, this is exactly how it goes. So um,
Well, I
I
think
also,
that's so important for like everyone who's watching this, right? Like AI is not going to be a silver bullet in fixing things and doing things 100%, but the amount of time and efficiencies you can create by like, okay, I'm under like it's a lot of like trial and error and tweaking and kind of tinkering with these things to get it to the right spot, but it's still worth it by all means to do it. But you have
yes.
to like kind of test it to figure out these little nuances that, yeah, you have to go and do a find and replace to give it that little extra set of instructions.
Exactly. And so again, like Dr. Michael would work perfectly fine if I didn't make these chances, but his output, how he talks would sound not correct to anybody, to any human. It'd just
Right.
be like, no, this thing doesn't work. And you can't have that. You need that like build confidence. And I don't want to put out things that are inaccurate. It's kind of against my ethics and morals. So
Yeah.
um really just kind of dressing up the table. I'll show you my little Easter eggs that I put in here. Just very simple. I'll delete these when I deploy this next. So no, you can't just go ask this type of stuff. But I'm a little sensitive to my balding. Keep the haircut short. I'm gonna lose it all at some point. So I like a little self-esteem booster in the day. And then this is where the Terminator comment came from. I know it wasn't you, but my other friend, Dr. Joe, that has an AI, he was asking some questions on LinkedIn, and this is actually one of the biggest concerns I have. Like if it falls into bad hands, something can
Yeah.
happen. But if you use it properly and you have good ethics and morals, like no, there's not going to be terminators. But
Right.
I just thought this would be kind of humorous. Prime directives is what Arnold Schwarzenegger answered to in the Terminator film. So
Yes.
it's just that simple.
My husband makes me watch a Terminator movie about once a quarter because he feels like I'm causing that to occur. So
I we should meet. I think I'd get along well with him. Within the kind of the rest of Soul Machines, knowledge snippets, it just wasn't necessary. This is
yeah,
probably somewhere I can add. These are single sentences you would add. For example, a high deductible healthcare plan. I could say HDHP stands for high deductible healthcare plan. Dr. Michael would then bake that into his responses and say instead of HDHP plan, the HDHP or the high deductible healthcare plan. Don't
yeah,
need to do it here. Knowledge URLs. So the first thing I did was take those two URLs I had and just slap them in here, thinking, yes, it'll be able to read those URLs perfectly. No. A lot of people have like non-crawlers on the site. There's ways around that with coding, but this is why I had to take that table and create it up in his actual prompt. This does work for other things. It's better with like statistics for fantasy football, story for another time.
yes.
But that's how more you can use it.
Yeah. Or even if you have it on your own, if you're training it for something internally at a company, right, you could have your own intranet, right? So that if there are changes in the future to certain employee handbooks, guidelines, policies, it is staying up to date with the latest information. You don't have to constantly be updating it.
Exactly. So you know where it can read stuff, it automatically can find it. Some of the other more important parts, the welcome message, you literally just type in what you want the avatar to say. This took again some sample questions so the user knows what to kind of ask it when it's there. Do not talk about. So curse words, drugs, Nazis, and racism are just part of what's automatically there. I thought Nazis was real specific. They should just cover all of hate.
All, yeah,
Fine. I added politics, religion, and sex because we don't need to talk about that. Let's just focus on health insurance. We don't need our avatar getting a dirty mind or getting into politics. That'd just be the worst. Error message, pretty standard error message. I hope this never comes up. It really shouldn't. But essentially, if you ask Dr. Michael a question and he had a glitch or something, he would show a big reason why, and probably some technical thing, and then just say, I can't answer this error. Let me get back to you with an answer from our tech team, which it just comes to me.
yeah.
Um, Some of the other stuff, I'll be honest, this is much more if you have APIs, orchestration servers. I don't think we need to go into this right now.
No.
And just stick with the interesting stuff. We'll cancel out of this. The only other place I spent the most time probably generating that table. It took an
Yeah.
hour, I'm not gonna lie. And I probably spent, I don't know, 3 hours going through all these different voices.
Oh, yeah.
I finally nailed it down to Andrew, and there was another one I had too. So hearing how they're going to talk was really important. A lot of these voices just sound like computers and robots, and that's just not, you need a human sounding voice. So they have a ton, they have a wide range. There were a lot in here. I think a lot of it was it just took time to load the different voice and hear him talk. I settled on Microsoft Andrew. I just thought that sounded the most authoritative. They had some odd sounding voices, like really high pitched men's voices, really low pitched women's voices. That's great. To each their own, but I wanted to settle on something that just sounded just kind of just run of the mill.
Neutral.
Yeah. Um, in terms of the audience, it's English. We don't have to change that. In terms of a provider, actually, I did my homework on these 3 different speech services. And I chose Microsoft mostly because a lot of the clients that I'll show this to will roll out to are Microsoft company, Microsoft. So
Yep.
you can integrate this with Azure really easily.
Yep.
So that's really like the only reason. I
Yeah.
know DeepGram has a wider selection of
Yeah.
kind of services. It's a little bit more diverse, but this is really just a choice based on if I need to integrate this with a client tomorrow, well, I can do it, and we can do some more sophisticated stuff with their actual data. So that was the reasoning here. User interface, this is just when he's up, and you can, if you pull out the menu, it just, those are the colors that it's in. And then if you want, you can put a company logo there, but just kept it kind of blank.
And you can even, I think you can even add like a badge card, or you could do, there's interest backgrounds and all that stuff from a branding perspective, which is awesome.
Yeah, there's all kinds of different stuff you can do. And then just the camera behavior. I just chose, again, it just sits here at his waist. It won't go anyplace else out. Cinematic looks a little bit different. It'll kind of sweep around like you're watching a movie, and he'll turn. It was a little bit too sophisticated, and I actually saw a lot of errors with cinematic and responsive as I was doing it. So I figured just with static, we don't need to show his head or his whole body, but we'll just keep it minimal.
Yeah. That's
To be
smart.
honest, that was really it. There's an area down here you can add an orchestration server. What an orchestration server does in layman's terms is essentially if you wanted to add other features, like if you needed robust data and analytics behind Dr. Michael to see like much more like how he was being used, how long are people interacting with him,
What
are
types
there
of
users, how long are the sentences or sessions, so on and so forth. Again, if you were at a private company, yes, you'd absolutely use one of these to add their own data to it, but again, based on the need. So it's something, if you have one, I'd highly recommend it. I do not have one right now, but that's something, again, for future use with Dr. Michael. And outside of that,
Such a great way, I think, people to get started, start thinking about where there's benefits. I mean, there's so much. I mean, I wish I recently went through like protesting my property taxes, and I'm like, you don't need it, like selecting health insurance plans, these things where like this adulting stuff that no one teaches you, and you just like kind of get thrown into the deep end. Like being able to ask what sometimes feels like a really dumb question to somebody you know, like Dr. Michael won't judge you, is I think a huge asset for
no,
people everywhere.
totally. And I mean, too, when I think about it too, like Dr. Michael, he's just there to answer health insurance questions. But as I started to come up with those Easter eggs, you think of the applications for something like this, just for, people with high anxiety, people that just need somebody to talk to. You don't have to program them this deep. It can be very, very simple stuff. So to me, the possibilities are endless with creating these. There's a ton you can do. I just think it's super fun, and able to use a lot of my data science knowledge to make a lot of these things work. So,
Awesome. This is
yeah.
great. And I'm sure everyone loved hearing not just my voice this week, but both our voices, which is fun. So thank you guys for joining this week's episode. Next week, we'll be focused on the O1 preview model and some of our tips and tricks on how to prompt it correctly, how to integrate it with SQL databases. If you haven't tried out the O1 model, you have to be a Plus user, but it is insanely better at a lot of more critical thinking tasks than the 4.0 model. So check it out and see us next week in terms of how to even get the better value out of it moving forward.